Sitting there chilling. This ball. Man, imagine if that was your car window. They almost smacked me.
Is that guy looking for it or what? Like somebody opened that gate?
Often in close quarters in schools and daycares.
I think the study should have people think for a second about what we need to do to make sure that when we reopen schools, we're doing it in a safe manner. We can't assume that children don't get coronavirus or spread coronavirus.
And just as more school districts navigate a return to the classroom, researchers at the University of Minnesota explored how the virus travels indoors. Mapping where aerosols congregate, their analysis shows a teacher talking directly under an air vent would significantly decrease the potential spread of the virus. In Arizona, some parents are being asked to sign COVID liability waivers before their children come back to school. But art teacher Marcy Warner decided to retire first.
I love those kids and where I taught and what I did, but I'm not quite willing to die for them.
As concern grows and infections surge, Johnson & Johnson announcing its lead vaccine candidate is now headed towards phase 3 clinical trials in September. Progress amid setbacks.
Vaccine ain't gonna do shit.
All right, Miguel Elmer here in Los Angeles, thank you. And tonight, the domino effect of the pandemic is evident in the staggering impact on the economy as millions struggle to keep food on the table. We get the latest from NBC's Jolene Kent.
When Myrna Santiago lost her job this spring, she never thought she'd need a food bank.
We thank God for all of you that come to our store.
The pregnant mother of 3 and her fiance are among the tens of millions struggling to make ends meet.
It's sort of a natural disaster and an economic disaster all rolled in one.
The economy shrinking by nearly 33% last quarter, the fastest drop in U.S. history, worse than the Great Recession and the Great Depression. Americans spent less on clothes, shoes, and healthcare, pulled back on buying new homes, while dealerships added fewer cars and trucks to their lots. Last week, another 1.4 million new jobless claims were filed, the 19th straight week of claims over 1 million. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank has been swamped.
People we know that's trying to get us to do unemployment.
The unprecedented need for help is expected to only grow.
At any given distribution, we're seeing 2,000 to 3,000, up to 7,000 families come through in a 3 or 4 hour period.
And these lines of cars likely to get even longer as the extra $600 a week of federal unemployment money expires. Today, the Senate failing to pass the Republican plan to extend unemployment benefits and provide an extra $200 a week for the next 3 months. Democrats argued that wasn't enough. Meanwhile, Santiago has been applying for new jobs, trying to provide for her family.
What are you going to do? I don't know.
I know how it is out there.
I really don't know. That was really helping us with our rent. It was a really big help.
Something so many Americans so desperately need. Jolene Kent, NBC News, L.E.N.R, California.
A fierce tropical storm is battering parts of the Caribbean tonight, and it's only going to get worse. Heavy rain is causing flash floods in Puerto Rico. Residents there are worried about possible mudslides. The storm is heading northwest and could approach Florida's east coast over the weekend. A tropical storm watch issued late today in the southeastern part of the state. In 60 seconds, how misinformation about the pandemic is having dire consequences in the battle to save lives. Also, 2 COVID survivors speak out about the double lung transplants that saved them.
That they're doing in China.
As COVID spreads throughout the country, so does misinformation and conspiracy theories about cures and treatments that simply don't work and may even be harmful. Tonight, Tom Costello is looking into who's behind it all.
And when this shit first started, you could do a double lung transplant.
Over 350 patients with COVID. In a nanosecond, the video ricocheted across the internet. Posted by Tea Party Patriots Action, featuring a group of doctors insisting masks don't work, but hydroxychloroquine does.
That's what they're pushing with the zinc and the erythromycin
treatment. Even though the NIH and FDA insist that's not true, a presidential retweet made the video go viral, forcing Dr. Fauci to once again reiterate the hard science.
Hydroxychloroquine is not effective.
Losing signal.
treatment of coronavirus disease or COVID-19.
While Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook removed the video, Congress demanded to know what took so long.
It racked up.
Y'all don't even let my videos up, and they showing the truth. That's what's crazy. Anyhow. As they were stating, the kids are super spreaders like they always been. But we'll play stupid. And like you see in the keshe groups, they're talking about the corona babies like they were when this shit first started. The first wave of kids that are every 8 seconds in America, a child's born. Just like every 72 seconds, somebody dies.
20 million views and over 100,000 comments before Facebook acted to remove it.
Well, Congressman, a lot of people shared that, and we did take it down because it violates our policies.
Of course, the internet is full of misinformation and conspiracy theories, from QAnon to
Retarded people got stuck
Russian
on
disinformation, to right-wing documentaries that accuse Dr. Fauci himself of manufacturing COVID. The motive?
He has a very high approval rating because he gives you clear, reliable, concise, timely, and true information. That is all of the kind of information that conspiracy theorists don't want. It is contrary to the very heart of a conspiracy theory.
But frontline ER and ICU doctors say every false medical claim and conspiracy theory makes their jobs that much tougher.
It takes time away from the work that we could be doing to actually save patients or create new science. And it
seminal fluid, people. What vaccine helps with that? Huh? What vaccine helps with that, kids? See what they say tonight on BBC News.
Power to change the election says he's concerned that a pandemic-related surge in mail-in voting could skew or delay the results.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything. Right. That's what's going to happen.
Trump, who votes by mail, has repeatedly made unsubstantiated claims about election fraud. Critics say the president raised the subject to deflect attention from the economy, the pandemic, and other sobering news of the day. Georgia Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis has been honored at a memorial service in Atlanta.
Across most of the planet, with a race on to try and shut down infections without resorting to large-scale shutdowns. In Australia, localized outbreaks have prompted authorities to act, including in the state of Victoria, where an emergency task force has been deployed to tackle more than 80 outbreaks in care homes. Let's speak to Lisa Fitzpatrick. She is the State Secretary of the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation. Good to talk to you, Lisa. Thank you for your time. Care homes, why do you think they've been affected so badly?
Well, essentially, I think they have been affected so badly because we have poor staffing levels. This is only in the private care homes. We have public care homes where we haven't had outbreaks at all. We call an outbreak if there's one case or more, but we have 613 private homes in the state of Victoria, and 77 have an outbreak, and of those 77, 13 have more than 20 COVID positive tests of either residents or staff.
And you say it's down to understaffing. Are you saying that the private...
I think
go on.
Sorry, I do think that understaffing, these are, there's poor levels of numbers of qualified nursing staff, and in Australia, there is no minimum qualification to work as what we call a personal care worker.
Really?
In a care home. That's correct. There is a qualification you can get, but there's no federal government requirement that you have to have that. There are no numbers for minimum staffing levels in our private homes. In the public homes here in Victoria, we do have minimum ratios, and I think that is one of the very significant contributing factors as to why we haven't seen the COVID outbreaks in the public homes, but we have in the private.
Who regulates the privately run care homes? You'd think that someone would be making sure.
The Commonwealth government.
Right. So you
Yes, so
are we
that's
saying
our
that
federal government.
it's not paying attention, it's not doing its job? Because you'd think that they'd be keeping an eye on the staffing levels and making sure that the right people are employed in these positions.
Well, the private homes, most of them are private for profit, and so this is the appalling world that we live in, where we have the corporatisation of our care homes or nursing homes, and it's always at the expense of those residents who live in those homes and the staff that are trying to work and care for those residents.
I wonder who pays better, private homes or is it the public ones?
Oh, no, the public homes play much better.
Oh, right.
Yes, they're under our state government. No, the private homes, as I said, we have 613 of them.
Yeah.
26 in Victoria are Bupa homes, actually, which will be known to you, of course. And, yes, they all pay different.
And talk to me about PPE. It has been a big part of the conversation, protective gear for staff and access to it. It's been a big conversation throughout the pandemic around the world. Does everybody have enough gear to make sure that they're protected?
Early on in the pandemic, when we had what we called the first wave, which was really just people arriving in the country, we had real challenges. But because we had weeks where we didn't have any community or, there weren't problems at all in our health system around the virus, we were able to stock up. So at the moment, PPE is not an issue.
Right.
We do have adequate PPE. Yes.
And I remember talking to a nurse from Spain who was talking to me about the impact of taking care of patients on her mental health and on the mental health of colleagues. I wonder what stories you're hearing from nurses.
Similar stories. People are feeling very stressed and very concerned. We're fortunate at the moment. We have only today, for example, we have 37 patients that are in ICU. We've got 349 Victorians in hospital. So we're not seeing, of course, thank God, the numbers of overseas counterparts. But, it's still, we are seeing younger people. Yes, we've had a lot of older people who've passed away out of 112 deaths now in Victoria, but we had a young man yesterday who was only 50 years of age who died, and we do have a number of young 20 and 30-year-olds who are in our intensive care unit.
And if you were to do anything at all, if it was down to you to decide on what needs to be done to make sure that care homes are better run and everybody has the right, that everybody survives it, as briefly as you can, what would you do different?
Well, we need the nursing ratios that we have in the public sector to be extended to our private sector, and we need to have more qualified nurses. We call it a better skill mix, so that we can adequately care and safely care for residents rather than relying heavily. We've got about 70% of the workforce in our private care homes are personal care workers, and it's not fair. Those staff are doing an extraordinary job. They're trying very hard, but they're under-resourced and they're undervalued.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa Fitzpatrick, for speaking to us.
Let's get the business news now. Andrew Wood is on the line from Hong Kong. Andrew, the economy there shrinking at an annualized rate of 33% in April, May and June. Tell us more.
Yeah, it sounds pretty grim, 33%, but the Americans do actually give their statistics in a slightly different form to most of the rest of the world. If you're looking at it how other countries would do it, that would be actually a 9.5% fall from the previous year. But let's just leave that aside, because the figures really are, whichever way you talk about it, they are truly horrendous. That means that over the past 5 years, all 5 years of growth in the economy, and the American economy's been doing quite well over the past 5 years, that's all been wiped out. It's the contraction is 3 times faster than the previous worst on record, which was back in 1958, and it's quite definitely the worst since the government started keeping records in 1947. So, I mean, that's the effect.
And I have done.
For the coronavirus, it probably would have been an awful lot worse if the Americans hadn't stimulated the economy by about $3 trillion. But nevertheless, it is still pretty grim. Here's Professor Tara Wilson of George Washington University. She's gloomy, really gloomy about what these latest figures tell us.
We did see some glimmer of an initial recovery back in June, but now it really seems like we're stalling out again. Even a robust recovery would take some time given the depth of the losses, but we might not see a very fast recovery at all in our current situation.
Well, that was Tara Wilson, George Washington University. Well, that was, yes, Tara Wilson. Remember, the Americans have stimulated the economy or not. The Republicans and the Democrats are trying to stimulate it a bit more. And that $600 of extra payments, unemployment payments, that American unemployed people have been getting runs out today.
Andrew Wood, thank you very much. This is Newsday from the BBC World Service.
And now with the latest sports, Matthew Kenyon.
Morning, folks. The NBA is back on in their bubble at Disney World. Everyone involved in the opening game between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Utah Jazz knelt during the U.S. national anthem as part of the league's carefully choreographed expression of support for the Black Lives Matter campaign. That is, of course, technically against the NBA rules, as we mentioned yesterday, but the league has already made it very clear that
globally are unprotected, and where are they most vulnerable?
Yeah, I think we are seeing disruptions across the board in all types of countries, high-income countries, middle-income countries, low-income countries. You know, the numbers are quite hard to estimate because even in theory, if services are being delivered, people might be either unable or unwilling to access them. What we do know is that many children are not receiving vaccines due to the suspension of campaigns. So if you look at all campaigns of all vaccine-preventable diseases, we have more than 100 campaigns that have been postponed across 56 countries. For measles alone, we have had 37 measles campaigns that have been suspended across 35 countries. So, we do estimate anywhere between 100 and 150 million children missing out on vaccination due to disruption of campaigns and many millions more from the disruption of routine services.
And some countries are making local innovations to get people vaccinated. Can you give us an idea about these vaccinations? Can you describe, I suppose, these innovations? Because we see in Brazil and Tanzania, for example, they're trying to get ways of getting these children and people vaccinated, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the good news is that, from a total disruption of immunization services back in April, we are now seeing countries that are resuming their services. And their services have to be resumed in a different way. Physical distances need to be incorporated. Vaccines have to be delivered with good infection prevention control measures. So, for example, many countries have separated their vaccination services and taken them out of health facilities so that we minimize the contact between sick patients and healthy people who go out to seek preventive services. In Tanzania, for example, they started delivering vaccinations under a tree close to a health facility, but minimizing contact between patients and healthy people. In Brazil, for example, they instituted drive-through vaccinations to minimize contact.
That's Dr. Robin Nandi, who's the Chief of Immunization for UNICEF, and he was going into a lot of detail telling us about how the lack of PPE equipment for staff also adds to the pressure and people just dropping out of consultation, just being, too afraid to actually go forward and take their children for these vaccinations.
Yeah, for fear of contracting COVID-19, obviously. Yeah, it's Newsday. Connie Sharp, Alan Kasuja, and thank you for joining us wherever you are. And remember, lots of nuggets.
Don't worry, everybody. Take the hood is off, Casey. I'll play some and get back to work. splice these guys out. Hopefully with the little... Might be a reason why it has a little wire on it or something. Might be a way I can get it off. So many tools I got right now. I gotta get my tools back, man. Police fucking stole our shit. So, always have the right tools, man. This destroyed my life and I haven't what I needed by getting through. You need 2 crescent wrenches. You gotta hold this one. And this motherfucker just spins but wishes to bend it. And I ain't trying to bend this. So, just cut that shit. Otherwise it binds all up. And it's interesting how to get this shit off. Or it don't bind up, or in a sense to put it back on. Right? So, loving life. Gotta do taxes and stuff today too. You get a picture of this? Yeah. Every time I try getting this off, dude, this shit just spins with it and bends there. I definitely need 2 crescent wrenches. Up, down.
Myers violinist and pianist. All right, everybody. And there'll be another Morning Mind Bender coming up for you on Monday at just around 7:45. And happy birthday, Jeremy Chaplin. The intermezzo now from Zoltan Kodai's Harry Janusz.
Beautiful day. Love and light.